Yo, what's up, y'all? Today I wanted to talk about the word overrated. The word overrated gets used a lot in video game discussion videos, whether it's people typing on the internet or making videos. I watched a video yesterday by RGT85, and one little thing he said bothered me. He said that he thought Final Fantasy VII was an overrated RPG, and whenever people use the word overrated, it bothers me. Even when I use it, whenever I think about that word, it bothers me when I think about using that word and I stop myself from using it. It's a very cringe-worthy word. Whenever I hear the word overrated, it's tinged with hate, you know? Usually people refer to popular games as overrated, popular critically acclaimed games like Final Fantasy VII or Shenmue or even The Last of Us. Yes, I even heard someone, I remember Justin Davis of IGN called The Last of Us overrated. I think overrated is not the correct term people should use when used to describe games that they don't like. First of all, video games are works of art. And art is always subjective, so you can't really say that this piece of art is better than that piece of art. I mean, you could. It's up to you. You have freedom of speech. But I don't think that is saying a piece of art is better than another piece of art is actually true. I think you're projecting your capitalistic left-brained way of thinking onto right-brained subjective things, because that's what we've been programmed to do all our lives. We've been given grades in school. Everything has numbers. You have subscribers on YouTube, you have followers on Twitter. They're all numbers. We're programmed to look at numbers all the time, but numbers don't really tell the whole story, and you shouldn't really bow down to numbers or even letters if it's a letter grade. For something to be overrated, it first has to be rated, right? Who rates video games? It's just a bunch of people. Just because they have a .com website, that makes them qualified to give a rating? I don't think so. The value of video games are what individual people assign to them. One man or woman's trash is another man or woman's treasure. So I may like a game, you may hate it. I may hate a game, you may like it. You can't really rate or judge something that is subjective. What I see the word overrated as is a response to when a game gets a lot of love and a person doesn't understand that love, doesn't agree with that love. So instead of trying to understand the game, he or she calls the game overrated. A lot of times people don't understand games. I'll probably never understand the appeal of visual novel games, but I would never call them overrated just because I don't understand them. They may get 9s and 10s, and people who love them may love them, but I'm probably never going to. I mean, there's a possibility that I will love a visual novel game someday, but chances are I won't. But I won't call them overrated just because I don't like them. I think overrated has a lot to do with combating the hive mentality people think, but I don't think that when millions of people like a game, it's necessarily overrated, Most people like water and sleeping. Would you call water and sleeping overrated? It doesn't make any sense. Some things are factually, for example, The Last of Us. Some people like to call that game overrated because they say it doesn't have good combat. Well, I think that's part of the point. It's not supposed to feel like a snappy third-person shooter. You're in a post-apocalyptic setting. Stealth is very important. So if you don't like stealth, you probably won't like The Last of Us. Every little mistake counts and hurts you, and you'll die a lot. So if you don't like dying, like in Dark Souls, you won't like The Last of Us. Doesn't make that a bad game. Means that's not your cup of tea. What makes The Last of Us great is its melding of cinematic immersive storytelling and cinematic immersive gameplay. Melds the two very well together. It has a great story that resonates with a lot of Americans who are very tired of the government and also capitalism. I'm not saying socialism is good. I'm saying when everything needs money and revolves around money, people who don't have money, get tired of not having money, tired of needing money to do anything in life. That's what I mean. Final Fantasy VII. When people say they love this game or it's the best game ever, they're not really saying it is literally the best game ever. They're just exclaiming their love for the game. So they're not trying to say that every game sucks and FF7 is the best. They're saying that they love the game so much. And there's language is often very insufficient in expressing our true emotions. So when people say, "Oh, it's the best game ever," or whatever, they're not trying to put everything else down. They're just saying they love this game. For example, if you have a spouse, you probably think he or she is the best person ever. You love him or her. That doesn't mean everyone else sucks. Logically, it's a form of insanity, but that is how we humans operate. We create our own reality. So whether it's true or not, it's true to us. That's what the point is of the word love. We love something. Just because you don't understand it doesn't make it overrated. So another example, one game I would call overrated is probably Earthbound, but I would never say that to anyone else. Earthbound has a very specific audience that loves it. It's your Earthbound fans may exalt the game above everything else, but I don't think they think it's the best game ever. It's maybe their most favorite game, but a word like best or rated implies it has an empirical value to them, and games don't, as I've said. So when people who don't understand Earthbound play it for the first time and they're like, "What the heck is this?" The first instinct might be to say, "This game is overrated." But that's not really being fair to the game because it's not trying to appeal to a wide audience. It was designed with a specific resonating factor by the creator. And that really comes through and people latch on to that. People are receptive to that, and that's why they love games like Earthbound. I'm a person that likes to try different games, different genres, on different systems. Often I see people raving about their favorite games and I want to try them. And when I try them, I'm left feeling disappointed. And one of my first instincts might be to think, this game is overrated, but that's not really being fair. Games, the reason why people like certain games has a lot of depth to them. A game might come out at a certain point in your life, a point in your real life where you need that game to get through it. Maybe it has music that really affects your mood, makes you happy, or makes you sad. Maybe you don't want to think, and a game that doesn't make you think is a perfect game for you at the time, and so you love that game. And then a few vocal people on the internet, spread that love about the game, and then the majority might clamp onto that and try the game, and then they might say the game is overrated, but that's not really being fair to the game. And going into a game with really high expectations doesn't help anyone. I'm sure that people who first played Earthbound didn't have high expectations of it, and that's part of the reason why they love it so much. It surprised them. It's the same thing with me with Final Fantasy VII. I mean, I saw commercials of it before I bought it. I saw ads of it in magazines. It got really good review scores, but I had no idea what the game was about. I had never completed an RPG before because I was too young to understand how they worked. So when I first played Final Fantasy VII and the FMV came out, they showed Aeris's face, and then the train came into the station and it seamlessly transitioned into real-time gameplay. That blew my mind. So if you play that 20 years later and say it's overrated, I mean, that doesn't quite make sense. It's like if you saw Citizen Kane for the first time in the year 2019 and you say, "Oh, this is overrated." You can't really say that about art. You have to take art. You can only judge art based upon the context in which it is created. You gotta think about everything else in the same industry at the time, compare it to that. So if you think about a game like Final Fantasy VII, there was nothing like that game before. It felt so big. It was 3 discs worth because they had a lot of full motion video cutscenes in them. And if you think about a game like The Last of Us, I mean, there were a lot of cinematic games before, but I feel like they separated the cutscenes from the gameplay. I mean, people kept trying, but it never seemed seamless. The story and the gameplay, even Final Fantasy, it seemed like the cutscenes were more of a graphical reward for the player instead of trying to seamlessly integrate gameplay and cinematics together. But with The Last of Us, really felt like you were playing a movie because they weren't really going for, big explosions. It was very down to earth, the cutscenes and stuff. That's why I think it still stands up today. Games haven't really caught up to The Last of Us 1 yet. And I think The Last of Us 2 will be the next step in that kind of gameplay. So don't use the word overrated. The word overrated really makes me cringe. I just don't like it at all. I feel like it's an immature way to respond to something. You don't understand something, so you say it's overrated. So it seems like makes you look like you're smarter than the people who actually like the game. And that's just asinine. In fact, if you say something is overrated, you might be the one that is dumber than the people who actually appreciate the game. So knowing what makes the game really cool versus someone who says it's overrated, I don't understand what makes the game good. I had one film class when I went to college, so I'm not a film expert by any stretch of the imagination. So imagine me saying Citizen Kane is overrated. That just makes me look dumb. So I don't think anyone should use the word overrated anymore. If you want to take your game critiquing, your game analysis to the next level, come up with better words. What are you actually thinking? Instead of using the word overrated for, a plethora of different things, use more words. Use different words to express what you feel. And if what you're feeling is, I don't understand this game, and I don't think I ever will, then say that. Don't say this game is overrated. So thank you for joining me on another video. Have a great day.